This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, dear SQL folks. I'm Rasekare Dibola from the Next Generation SQL DBA. In the previous video, we have discussed on the this video we have discussed on the table scan and clustered index and non-clustered index seek and differences among them. Okay, so in the previous video, so I told you, right, so better to create one clustered index for a table. So that's so much important. If you create a clustered index on a table, that become the non-heap table. So that resolves so many issues on the table. Okay, so if you run any query on the table, so at least if you don't have any index on that table, at least that will use the clustered index. So we can consider a clustered index is a another table of existing table. Okay, if you create a clustered index means suppose we have an employee table. If you create a clustered index, so this become the another table. Like if you create a clustered index, okay, so that clustered index you can consider it as another table of the employee table. So if you run any query, that will use the clustered index instead of using the entire table. Okay, that's so many advantages we have using of the clustered index thing. Let me tell you one scenario. When I was working like almost 8 years back then, so one of the developer he dropped a clustered index mistakenly. He removed the clustered index script and he committed that code in the Git and he pushed the changes to master branch. So that code deployed into the prod. After deploying that code into the prod, that means in the table we don't have a clustered index after deploying. So the queries coming and hitting to that table. So the previous day we didn't have any issues. The day like when we didn't have that cluster index, the queries coming and taking more time. I told you, right, when you run a query on that table, if you have a cluster index, all the queries become faster because of the cluster index. The queries are coming and piling up. Like yesterday, that query taking one second, today taking 2 seconds. Like that, all the queries are taking time on that query, and slowly we have seen blockings. The queries which are running on the table, uh, each like coming under the blocking thing. I mean, one query A depending on query B depending on query C, like that. So see, if you don't have a cluster index, all queries which were run on that table will take in longer time. After adding that cluster index, that issue resolved it. So because of no cluster index, so many blockings we have seen, and the CPU went to 100%. Yes, state. So because it has to, instead of clustered index seek or scan, it has to use a table scan and all. So that's why clustered index is very important in. So even if we can talk about cluster index even 1 hour also, so that much story we can make it up on cluster index. So apart from that, like now let's discuss on the key lookup and ROID lookup. So previous class we discussed a table scan, cluster index scan, and cluster index scan and a non-cluster index seek. Now let's discuss on the key lookup. Okay, so key lookup and ROID lookup, both are looks like similar, but both are different. ROID lookup, you can see when you don't have a cluster index, you have a non-cluster index but don't have a clustered index. Such types you can see ROID lookups. Key lookups means you have a cluster index. Let me show you practically. So if I say theoretically, I don't think so people can understand better. See, we have a two tables, sales order 1 and the sales order. Okay, two tables we have. So both having the same number of rows. Let me run it with including the execution plan. Just execute it. If you see the execution plan here, see, so here the top table, Okay, this table doesn't have the cluster index. No cluster index. Okay, so this no cluster index. This we have a clustered index. So see, if you see the execution plan. So both the tables having the non-clustered index team. See, this is a non-clustered index. Both tables we have a non-clustered index on the customer ID. Here also we are using the customer ID. But this index, what is the problem with this index? No problem actually. So we created on the customer ID, but this index not having the columns of this. So there is no sales order ID, order date, and total due. So if we had these columns under the included columns, then definitely these queries will 100% use of this index. Because of this index not having these columns, what's happening, team? So what's happening? So row ID lookup and key lookup is happening. So team, whatever the data which are having under that index, that is taking key. See here, index seek is happening on this index. Okay, so remaining columns are not there in that index, right? So it is looking for row ID lookup. So we don't have a index here, right? On this table, we don't have a clustered index. That's why what is happening, row ID lookup, looking for rows. It is scanning row by row. That's called row ID lookup here. Okay, see the same in this example, we have a cluster index, right? Instead of scanning row by row, it is depending on the clustered index. I told you, if you don't have the right index, definitely depend on the clustered index. Okay, even if you don't have clustered index, what will happen? Table scan will happen. So here, like already part of like 32% of the data it is finding from this index, and remaining data getting from the clustered index. Cluster index means key lookup here. See, remaining rows, output order date. Okay, so sales order ID, order date, total due, getting from this index date. Okay, that we call it as a key lookup. So how to avoid this problem? Key lookup or row ID lookup. If we have a exact index, so let me create exact index thing so that that will avoid the row ID lookup and key lookup. Okay, so I'm adding. So here customer ID we have added along with included columns. People also call it as covering index. Okay, so this one included of maybe some spelling wrong. Include of this one. Okay, operation failed because we already have with this same index name. Okay, I am creating with a different index on both the tables. Okay, one is sales order. Okay, another table is sales order one. Let's see. Okay, it's done. Now let me run the query. See the execution plan. Okay, see, completely we have avoided the row ID lookup and key lookup. Okay, so happens when a non-cluster index is used, but additional columns are retrieved, causing extra lookups in the clustered index or heap. Okay, so key lookup or row ID lookup, when you don't have a clustered index team, row ID lookup will happening to find the remaining data. And if you have a clustered index team, to find the remaining data, it will use the clustered index. That's called key lookup and row ID lookup team. So these are also dangerous along with the table scan and clustered index. Please avoid these key lookup and row ID lookup by creating a exact index. Exact index means please cover remaining columns also to the existing index so that you can avoid this. Okay, so in the next video, let's talk about on the remaining things like sort, hash match, how to avoid and all. Let's discuss. Okay, so thank you team, thanks for watching this video. So subscribe this YouTube channel so that you will get more videos automatically. Thank you team, have a nice day.